Let's complete our tour of the info or inspector window by looking at the information that's at the bottom of the window when you are talking about a file, not a folder. If I select a file here, and before I move on, I'm going to show the extension so that it's shown the way all the other files on the system are. You can change, so in some folders you do show extensions and don't show extensions, but it's easier just to keep it the same way in the same environment. I can say that this file will be opened with a specific application, and in this case it's Photoshop. I could change that so I open with a different application for this file, so that, for example, I could say I want this file to be opened with a web browser, or with a graphic converter file, or with QuickTime, or with Preview, which ships with Mac OS X. So now if I double click Bridge, I'm going to launch Preview and open that file, because any of those files that I saw in the Open With can be used to open that particular type of file. But I also have the ability to change all. And what this does is to say that for all of the documents of this type, based usually on the extension, I want them always to open in Photoshop or in Preview or whatever. And there are a couple of reasons why you might want to do this or to change it. You may start with Preview opening JPEG and TIFF files, and it may turn out that at some point you want to move on to Photoshop, or you may want Acrobat Reader to open PDF files rather than Preview, and you can do it on a file-by-file basis, or you can say, no, from now on I want this application to open all files of that type. This is also useful if you are upgrading software and you have several versions of an application floating around. For example, I do a lot of work with FileMaker, and I have several versions of FileMaker on this computer. And you'll see that I have the developer version, I have the current version of what's called FileMaker Pro Advanced, and I have the previous version, 8.5. I can choose whether or not I want to use an 8.5 version or what is now current, which at this particular moment happens to be version 9. It's a very useful way of keeping the same application but switching versions of it. So that's why you might want to, on an individual basis or for all of the files with that extension, change how they are opened. Then the last item we'll talk about down here is the preview of a file, and that's the same as the thing you see over here. In the case of images, the preview is the thumbnail of the actual image. And there are other types of files where the preview does show you content of what's in the file. For example, a PDF. And notice here, when I hover the mouse over the document, I can page through that PDF. I can't read it at this resolution, but I can certainly see where a chapter begins and get an idea basically of what's in the document. Finally, in here we have sharing and permissions, which controls who can read and write to the file. That we'll talk about in the section on security. So that completes the info window. There's a lot of information there, and it's very valuable. You can look at it in the info window or the inspector window and find out what's going on with the files on your computer or any file you can access over a network.